Hello sewing fans, today we are making a gathered dress with stylish waistline and deep V neckline. Whether you are a pro stitcher or just starting out, I'll walk you through each step with helpful tips. So get ready to create a dress you love. To kick things off, we'll need about a yard of a non-stretchy fabric for the top of the dress. And guys, I've noticed some of you asking about the fabrics I use. Where I live, we call this a ribbon fabric. I know it might have a different name where you are, but don't worry, look for a non-stretchy fabric suitable for the dress at your local fabric store. Okay, let's proceed. Look at this gorgeous 6-yard African print fabric. We can use this to create two-hole dresses, especially if the designs aren't too dramatic. To start, the front border is drafting. We need a sheet of drafting paper long enough for the dress with the shoulder line already marked. Remember that the finished dress will be 42 inches long, so ensure your paper is at least that long as well. On the paper, take your shoulder line to bust line measurement. Next is to under bust line and then to waistline. Lastly, take your hip line strictly from the waistline as can be seen. And having marked, repeat same on side in order to achieve straight horizontal lines, which we are about to square out. With that completed, I'll go ahead and label each starting with the bust line all the way to the shoulder line. Next, we'll create a basic neckline that is 3 inches wide and 3 inches deep. Then I'll just smooth out neckline with a curve ruler. Now we'll take half shoulder measurement from center front, mine being 6.5 inches plus half an inch seam allowance. From there, measure 1 inch down for your shoulder slope, which is to be drawn from the mark to the neck width. Alright, let's measure chest length starting from the part where the shoulder slopes down. Have put a formula on screen to help you calculate in case you don't already know it. Once you have that measured, mark and draw straight horizontal line across that point. So now that's the chest line. On top of that, transfer half shoulder measurement to the drawn chest line just so you are able to achieve straight armhole depth joining shoulder slope to the chest line. With that in mind, mark quarter bar circumference on the chest line, then go ahead and find the armhole depth midpoint and mark as well. Further on, go in with 0.5 inches from that exact point. And lastly, use a French curve ruler to come up with a nicely drawn armhole in that manner. Next, I'm going to have like an imaginary dot line drawn along bust span marked on waistline and bust line. The reason I call it so is because this dress has no dot on the side front at all. This only acts as guide. Measure further quarter waist circumference on waistline from the center front. And like I said earlier, no dot replacement. So I'll just proceed and add 1 1/4 inches stitching allowance. Since we already marked quarter bar circumference on chest line earlier, we'll be required to add same stitching allowance. Moving forward, measure quarter hip circumference on hip line plus 1 1/4 inches for seam allowance, and that's a total of 11 1/4 inches. With a full length measurement, you don't need to vary much. Just transfer the 11 1/4 inches to it, and that's all. Don't forget that whatever we have marked are guide measurements. Feel free to adjust them to create a gown that flatters your figure. Having shaped the dress, let's move on to marking about 1 inch downwards at the center front from bust line, just so you can use that to draw the first part of the cap. On top of that, move upwards 1 inch again for the second section. This is how I normally draw my caps using a curve ruler. Let's now focus on finding the shoulder slope midpoint. Then you will be required to extend that line to the mark. I started by saying this dress has a deep V neckline. I'm on to that. From the initial shoulder line, check whatever measurement you are willing to expose for your neckline. Then proceed and draw new one from the mark to the neck width. Now is the time to work on the unique waistline. I'm taking 3 inches on the side edge from waistline. On the same note, I'll take 2.5 inches downwards again from center front. Lastly, measure 4.5 inches on the drawn dart line, and that's all you need to come up with a nicely drawn new waistline. I'm currently cutting out along the outlines as I separate the cap part from underbust section and skirt. With me is the back part drafting paper. As you can see, we have all the required horizontal lines drawn already, and the only big difference here is the neck depth measuring 1 1/4 inches. So let's label the zip allowance right here. To continue drafting, I'm going to measure quarter bust circumference from center front on chest line and mark so as to draw armhole curve, which is slightly different from what you saw earlier. For darting purposes, measure half bust span on the waistline and bust line as well, just so you can draw that line as can be seen. In addition to that, measure on each 1 inch downwards from bust line. Also measure 4 inches on that line still from waistline. Then finish up by taking that width of 1 inch on waistline. Once done, create a basic dart like that. From there, you'll be required to measure quarter waist circumference on waistline from center line, plus 1 inch dart replacement, plus 1.25 inches for stitching allowance. Further on, add some stitching allowance to whatever was measured earlier on chest line so as to comfortably draw bodice side outline. Now that we have the bodice block, add your hip measurement on hip line plus same allowance, then go ahead and finish up the skirt side edge with the help of a hip curve ruler. Remember how we drafted the new waistline earlier? Same considerations apply here too. Pay close attention as I show you how you can eliminate the bulge completely. After measuring 0.5 inches inwards on waistline, draw new inner center line first in that manner from neckline to hip line before you can also reduce the seam allowance with the same measurement. I'm currently cutting out a long outline. In case you are enjoying this tutorial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also feel free to leave a comment below. Back to the front part cutting. So I'm going to slash and spread this cap piece from the drawn line. After slashing, let's now spread it on a different sheet. First thing first, secure the first panel with a tape like that. Then measure about 2 inches in case you are not that bustier. For wider bust circumference, incorporating 3 to 4 inches is still okay. Having taped, let's give it the shape we want by cutting all round. Pay close attention to this current step as I trace out fabrics from drafted patterns, leaving enough stitching allowance to ensure accurate pattern. I want to also slash and spread the front skirt piece. We are starting with some prep work, which will be drawing lines 2 inches apart. After I'll be done measuring and marking out, before you slash, label each panel from the first to the last. And since we have our hip line as point of reference, I'll be spreading as I ensure they are all aligned. Also me slashing through each drawn lines one after the other before I can show you how to spread all these pieces on the fabric. Since my workbench wasn't enough, I've decided to do it on the floor. If you notice, the hip lines are on a straight line. So all you need to do is finding midpoint right there, just so you can draw new waistline again on the fabric from where you'll cut. This is where stitching starts officially. First thing first, make gathers at the bottom edges, then as you'll see later, have the facing stitched all round neckline as well with 0.5 inches. This is how you'll be stitching the back pieces. From the dart fold marks, stitch basic darts both sides. Once done, attach facings to the necklines as well. This is me trying to ensure that only 2 inches spread is gathered. Also me trying to attach the front facing to the lining with 0.5 inches like I mentioned earlier. Always make sure you notch after stitching your neckline before top stitching on the facing. This will help prevent lining from showing on the fabric's right side. Guys, look at what we've got after stitching and ironing. I now want to focus on attaching back pieces together from the drawn center line with just loose stitches for now. After stitching loosely without back stitching, here it is. So very first I want to illustrate how to join back to front shoulder. Grab one of the facing piece and use it to cover everything else, then stitch with 0.5 inches both sides. When done, go ahead and also stitch alongside edges using your body measurements. I've already stitched as I explained. Let's now tear the back pieces since it has served its purpose, and this is done so that it can be easy attaching skirt to top part. That's me taking the total measurement around the lower waistline. Having measured, I went ahead and made loose stitches all around the skirt piece from one end all the way. I want you all to bear in mind that you can stitch back skirt pieces to front so that you only have one piece. Alright, let's form gathers on it to the required measurement by pulling one of the strings gently. And let me tell you guys, this took me over 30 minutes straight because the piece is very long. After I took my time, I finally managed to finish. And if you notice, I've put some marks to act as guide, just so I can easily know exactly which part goes where. So using the markings as guide, I'll head over to the sewing machine and stitch with 0.5 inches right sides facing each other. I'm done stitching. From here I'll finalize this by fixing this long hidden zip along the back center line top to bottom. Then we'll attach skirt parts together from where the zipper ends to the round bottom. Kindly let me know in the comment section if you are interested in knowing how to bead, and I'll be happy to help. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more sewing tutorials. Let's meet in our next video.